You've been praying for the next level, but what are you doing with this one? You're asking for promotion, but have you prepared for responsibility? See, before you can have dominion over anything external, you have to first win the war within. You don't get what you wish for in life, you get what you're prepared for. And preparation starts with working hard on yourself. The most valuable real estate in your life is not your house, your land, or your bank account. It's your mindset. It's the space between your ears. You can be in the right place at the right time and still miss your opportunity if your mind isn't ready. The world doesn't pay you for your time. It pays you for the value you bring to the time. And the only way to raise your value is to raise you. You've been praying for the next level, but what are you doing with this one? Many people spend so much time asking for more while completely neglecting what they already have. Promotion doesn't come just because you want it. It comes because you're ready for it. And the preparation for promotion begins with working hard on yourself. You cannot expect external change if there has not first been internal transformation. The law of development says that increase comes to those who are already operating in excellence with what they've been given. So if you're asking for more, but you're not maximizing now, then you're out of alignment. The outer world is always a mirror of the inner world. Your finances, your relationships, your influence, they all reflect the level of your personal development. Most people try to fix the fruit while ignoring the root. Not belief in yourself in a prideful way, but belief in the calling God placed in you and the responsibility you carry to develop it. You can't rise above the level of your thinking. That's why personal development is not optional, it's essential. You become what you think about most consistently. If your thoughts are full of fear, you'll live small. If your thoughts are filled with vision, you'll live big. If your thoughts are full of discipline, you'll produce fruit. And the way to change your life is to change your thoughts. Because transformation doesn't begin with action, it begins with renewal. That's why you've got to fill your mind with wisdom. Read books, listen to teaching, surround yourself with people who stretch you. Iron sharpens iron, but some of y'all are still surrounded by sandpaper. You want to grow, but you're still stuck in the soil of stagnation. And growth doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. You've got to schedule your growth. You've got to plan your development. You've got to be intentional about the person you're becoming every day. The mistake many people make is they assume time alone will change them. But it's not the years, it's what you do in the years that produces transformation. When you work hard on yourself, you elevate your standards. You stop settling for average, because average is the enemy of excellence. You stop comparing because you know that your real competition is the lesser version of you. You stop waiting for validation because you've already been approved by your Creator. You stop operating in reaction because you've already been approved by your Creator. You stop operating in reaction because you've already been approved by your Creator. And when you do that, doors open, not because of luck, but because of alignment. Opportunities begin to recognize the version of you who's been forged in fire, shaped by discipline and strengthened by wisdom. But that version of you doesn't show up without work. You've got to work harder on your mind than on your job. You've got to work harder on your character than on your income. Because when you grow, you raise your value. And the marketplace always pays for value. The higher your internal development, the greater your external reward. You can't escape that law. And you shouldn't want to. Because that law works for those who work it. If you grow yourself, you'll grow your income, your influence, your impact. You won't have to chase blessings. Blessings will start to chase you because you've become someone who can be trusted with more. Skill and character compound in the same way that interest does in a bank account. The more you invest in them daily, the more they grow, and eventually they begin to multiply beyond your efforts. When you work on your skill, you're building your capacity to produce value. When you work on your character, you're building your capacity to sustain what your skill can produce. Talent might get you in the room, but character keeps you in the room. Skill might help you make money, but character determines whether you can keep it. You can hustle your way into a promotion, but if your inner life is weak, you'll sabotage the opportunity. The world rewards excellence, but God looks at integrity. So if you want to experience sustainable success, you need both. It's not just about what you can do, it's about who you are while doing it. Some people are busy chasing credentials when they need to be building credibility. And credibility comes from character. Doing what you say, standing on your values, choosing what's right even when no one's watching. There's a difference between gifts and growth. And your gift is what you're born with, but growth is what you develop. You can be naturally good at something and still remain stagnant because you never invested the time to improve. You've got to stretch your skill, practice it, polish it, study it, learn from people who are better than you. You don't rise to the level of your gift, you rise to the level of your discipline. The top performers in any field are not always the most talented. They're the most trained. They've done the reps, they've paid the price, and they understand that mastery is not a destination, it's a lifestyle. The same is true with character. It's not something you build once. It's built decision by decision, day by day. Every time you choose honesty over convenience, responsibility over excuses, humility over ego, you're compounding character. And the most powerful part, these small decisions build momentum. The more consistent you are, the stronger your foundation becomes. People think success is about achieving something great one time, but real success is built on daily discipline. Skill grows when you practice it even when you're tired. Character grows when you uphold your values even when it costs you. The people who make the biggest impact are not just talented, they're prepared. They've been training when no one was watching. And when the opportunity comes, they don't have to get ready because they stayed ready. They didn't wait until a stage was given. They built themselves to a level where the stage had to find them. This is the power of compound growth. One day of practice doesn't change your life. One day of integrity doesn't transform your destiny. But stack it day after day, and your future begins to shift. You begin to attract people who operate at that level. You begin to get noticed in rooms you used to be invisible in. Not because you begged for it, but because you became it. Most people underestimate how powerful small growth can be. They think big change needs a big moment. But the truth is, most growth is invisible until it's undeniable. Most transformation is happening behind the scenes until one day it shows up in results you can't ignore. That's the principle of compounding. One day, the seeds you've been planting in private start to grow into fruit in public. But the key is not to stop watering the seed. Keep sharpening the skill. Keep protecting your integrity. Keep choosing excellence. Keep being faithful with little. And the time will come when you'll be trusted with much. Don't just focus on becoming successful. Focus on becoming ready. Because skill and character are the tools God uses to elevate people when the timing is right. And when you are prepared, the right opportunity becomes a matter of divine timing rather than desperate chasing. You are your best investment. Not your car, not your clothes, not your social media image, not even your business. The best return you will ever see is from the time, energy, and resources you pour into growing yourself. Too many people are chasing external assets while ignoring their most powerful internal asset, themselves. You can buy a course, start a business, attend an event, but if you haven't done the work of building yourself, none of it will matter in the long run. Because the weight of success will crush a version of you that wasn't built to carry it. There is no shortcut to sustainability, and personal development is the price you pay for lasting success. When you grow yourself, you expand your capacity to handle more. When you elevate your thinking, you attract better solutions. When you deepen your discipline, you create stronger results. You don't need to chase the next trend if you're consistently building the person who can win regardless of the trend. Most people are looking for something to give them leverage, a strategy, a formula, a system. But the real leverage is who you become. Because when you grow yourself, everything you touch gets better. Your leadership improves, your communication sharpens, your confidence increases, your decision-making becomes clearer. You stop second-guessing yourself because you're no longer operating from fear. You're operating from preparation. Personal development is not just about reading books or going to seminars. It's about transforming your mindset, upgrading your belief system, mastering your emotions, aligning your habits with your vision. It's about becoming so rooted in purpose that you're no longer swayed by pressure. The deeper your roots, the taller your growth. The more you invest in you, the more you can pour out into others. If your cup is empty, you have nothing to give. That's why working on yourself is not selfish, it's strategic. It's necessary, it's wise. You cannot pour from an empty well, and you cannot build a legacy from a shallow foundation. You might have the dream, but do you have the discipline? You might have the calling, but do you have the character? You might have the opportunity, but do you have the order in your life to manage it? That's why development is so important, because it's what happens when no one's watching that prepares you for what happens when everyone is. When you invest in yourself, you're saying yes to your future. You're saying, I believe I'm worth the work. That belief alone shifts how you show up. You stop tolerating things that drain your energy. You stop associating with people who keep you small. You stop spending time on things that don't serve your mission. You start prioritizing growth over entertainment. You start choosing excellence over comfort. You start living like someone who understands that destiny isn't automatic. It's stewarded. Most people want God to do everything for them, but God works through people who are prepared. He won't put a king on a throne who still thinks like a slave. He won't hand over a kingdom to someone who can't govern their own habits. So if you want more, become more. If you want overflow, develop structure. If you want doors to open, build the version of you that's qualified to walk through them. That's what personal development does. It makes you a match for what you're praying for. You have to become the kind of person who can handle more. And the way you do that is by showing up for yourself daily. Not when it's convenient, not when it's easy, but when it's hard, when it's quiet, when it feels slow. That's when the real work is happening, and that work will never be wasted. It will always produce fruit in due season. But you have to plant the seeds of growth before you expect the harvest of success. And you have to trust that who you are becoming is worth every ounce of energy it takes to build. Discipline and identity go hand in hand because your behavior will always align with the version of yourself you believe in the most. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you are in agreement with at the identity level. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you'll keep showing up late, quitting early, and making excuses. If you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, you'll push through pain, resist distractions, and stay committed to your path. Identity is the thermostat. Discipline is the temperature. The identity sets the standard, and the discipline brings everything else in line with it. That's why willpower alone is not enough, because willpower can be drained. But identity runs deep. It governs your choices without needing constant motivation. When you become someone who values growth, health, or excellence as part of your identity, discipline becomes a byproduct instead of a battle. The reason most people fail to stay consistent isn't because they're lazy. It's because their habits are trying to build something their identity doesn't support. They're trying to act like a champion without seeing themselves as one. They're trying to behave wealthy while still thinking broke. They're trying to walk in purpose while still identifying with their past. Until your mind is renewed, your actions will always be in conflict with your core beliefs. You can force discipline for a while, but eventually your identity will pull you back to what feels familiar. So the real work is not just changing your routine, it's upgrading your identity. You have to see yourself as someone who shows up every day, someone who honors their word, someone who chooses purpose over pleasure, someone who doesn't need applause to keep going. When your identity shifts, everything changes around you. You no longer need external accountability to keep your commitments because your integrity becomes internalized. Discipline is a daily decision, but identity is what gives it staying power. You can have a strong start and still fall off if your self-concept doesn't grow with your goals. Your environment might be loud, but your identity has to be louder. That's why renewing your mind is not a one-time event. It's a lifestyle. You have to constantly remind yourself who you are and what you're called to do. Every morning, every decision, every challenge is an opportunity to reinforce the new version of you. And this doesn't mean perfection. It means alignment. It means becoming someone who consistently chooses long-term purpose over short-term. It means embracing the discomfort of growth because you've decided that comfort is no longer your identity. Discipline without identity is duty. Discipline with identity is destiny. When your actions line up with your assignment, life flows differently. You stop seeing discipline as punishment and start seeing it as empowerment. You stop viewing sacrifice as loss and start recognizing it as investment. And when you understand who you are at the core, discipline becomes protection, not restriction. You protect your energy by choosing where to focus. You protect your purpose by saying no to what doesn't fit. You protect your future by obeying the plan, even when your feelings want to wander. That's why most successful people aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They are the ones who made the decision to act in agreement with their identity even when no one was watching. You can't rise higher than your habits, but your habits will never rise higher than your identity. If you believe you're inconsistent, you'll quit. If you believe you're not enough, you'll self-sabotage. But if you believe you are called, capable, chosen, equipped, then discipline becomes a tool, not a torment. And it starts with small decisions: waking up on time, finishing what you start, honoring your word, feeding your mind, guarding your associations. All of these actions reinforce who you are becoming. And as your identity becomes stronger, your discipline becomes easier. You begin to walk in purpose with power because you're no longer trying to act like someone you're not. You've become that person through repetition, commitment, and vision. You cannot lead others until you learn to lead yourself. Leadership does not begin with influence over people. It begins with authority over your own mind, emotions, and decisions. Before you ever stand on a stage or manage a team, you must first manage your thoughts, discipline your habits, and direct your energy with intention. The reason many people struggle with leadership is because they skip this step. They want titles, platforms, followers, and results, but they haven't yet cultivated personal order. And leadership without personal order is fragile. It looks strong on the outside, but crumbles under pressure. Real leadership is forged in private. It's built in the moments when no one is clapping, no one is watching, and no one is validating you. It's the ability to do what's right even when it's hard. It's the courage to confront yourself before you try to correct anyone else. The highest form of leadership is self-leadership. It means showing up when you don't feel like it. It means sticking to the plan when distractions come. It means staying rooted in your values when compromise looks easy. You cannot give people direction if your own life is drifting. You cannot build trust if your word doesn't mean anything to you. You cannot call people higher if you're living lower than your potential. So you must first submit to structure, to consistency, to principles that keep you focused. The foundation of leadership is not charisma, it's character. People may follow talent for a moment, but they follow character for a lifetime. That's why working on yourself isn't an option if you want to lead well, it's a responsibility. Self-leadership requires honesty. You have to be willing to confront the parts of you that still make excuses, the parts that avoid responsibility, the parts that fear success and resist discipline. When you lead yourself, you no longer tolerate what weakens you. You set standards, not just goals. You build routines that reflect your values. You become your own accountability. Because waiting for someone else to push you is a sign you haven't yet embraced ownership. And you cannot pass on what you have not first practiced. Leadership isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself to such a degree that others are inspired to grow by watching your example. True leadership is felt before it's followed. It's sensed in your energy, your choices, your consistency. People know when you're walking what you talk. They recognize when your life bears the fruit of the principles you preach. You become a mirror for possibility. But if your private world is messy, eventually your leadership will be too. You must steward your own life with excellence before you can be entrusted with anyone else's. That means guarding your focus, managing your time, nurturing your soul, feeding your mind. Because leadership isn't just about production, it's about alignment. When you're aligned internally, everything you do externally carries more power. Your decisions have clarity. Your words have weight. Your presence brings order instead of confusion. The greatest leaders in history didn't start with crowds. They started with calling. They said yes to the process of becoming before they were ever celebrated for achieving. They led themselves through wilderness seasons. They built resilience in obscurity. They developed their values before they ever had a voice that others listened to. That's the model worth following. If you want to be trusted with more, you must be faithful with yourself. Can you lead your emotions when things don't go your way? Can you lead your habits when no one is watching? Can you lead your mind when it's flooded with doubt? Can you lead your mouth when silence is the wiser path? These are the tests of leadership, and they happen daily. You don't need permission to lead. You need preparation. And preparation starts by looking inward, by being consistent in your growth, anchored in your values, and relentless in your vision. Leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the clearest example of what's possible when you choose purpose over preference, discipline over distraction, and stewardship over status. God won't give you more than you're prepared to handle because increase is not a reward, it's a responsibility. Everyone wants growth, but very few are preparing for it. Most people are praying for overflow while still living with habits that can't even manage what they currently have. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you rise to the level of your preparation. If you're not faithful with the little, you won't be trusted with much. That's not punishment, that's principle. Increase requires structure, and blessings require stewardship. Many doors remain closed, not because of a lack of opportunity, but because of a lack of capacity. God is not withholding, he is protecting. He's not denying you access, he's developing your readiness. Because what you're asking for is weighty, and what you carry must be strong enough to hold what's coming without breaking. Preparation is spiritual. It's not just about reading books or acquiring skills. It's about developing the character, the order, the mindset, and the humility to manage growth without letting it destroy you. A lot of people can build something quickly, but very few can sustain it. The difference is preparation. The difference is foundation. What you build in the dark determines whether you can stand in the light. God prepares people before he promotes them. David was anointed long before he ever sat on the throne. Joseph dreamed of influence, but went through betrayal, slavery, and prison before he ever saw the palace. Jesus spent 30 years in preparation for 3 years of public ministry. So what makes you think you can bypass the process and still carry the promise? The season of preparation is sacred. It is not wasted time. It is proving ground. It is the place where you learn how to manage pressure, navigate disappointment, stay consistent when no one is clapping, and hold on to your identity when things are not going your way. That's where maturity is formed. That's where faith is refined. That's where discipline is strengthened. And until you honor the preparation season, you're not qualified for the elevation season. Everyone sees the platform, but few know the process. Everyone wants the promise, but few want the pruning. But pruning is proof that God is making room for more. He's cutting back the dead things, the distractions, the dependencies, the attitudes that would sabotage your future if he let you skip this season. Sometimes we think we're ready for more because we're tired of less. But readiness isn't measured by frustration. It's measured by fruit. Are you managing your time well? Are you stewarding your resources? Are you speaking life or complaining? Are you mastering your habits or being mastered by them? These are signs of readiness. And God promotes based on alignment, not ambition. You can want it all day long, but if you're not prepared, it won't last, even if you get it. Because anything you obtain without preparation will eventually expose what you failed to build. And God loves you too much to allow you to succeed in a way that will destroy you. That's why the wait is often not a delay, it's a development. Increase is never accidental. It follows obedience, consistency, and preparation. You have to make room for what you're asking for. If you want more influence, can you handle criticism without crumbling? If you want more money, can you manage the income you already have? If you want a bigger platform, can you remain humble when people praise you? If you want to lead, can you serve? These are the questions that preparation answers. And once those answers are solid in your character, the increase begins to flow. Not because you chased it, but because you became someone who could carry it. God will never give you something that makes you depend less on him and more on yourself. So if the next level hasn't arrived, it's not rejection, it's refinement. He's forming you into someone who won't be destroyed by the weight of the very thing you're praying for. The promise is real, but so is the process. And the process is what builds the strength to hold what you've been destined to receive. The journey of personal development is not a suggestion. It is a requirement for anyone who desires to lead, to grow, to impact, or to carry the weight of divine purpose. You cannot rise in life above the level of who you are on the inside. Skill without discipline will crumble. Influence without character will corrupt. Opportunity without preparation will overwhelm. Every blessing you're asking for already exists, but it is locked behind the version of you that is willing to do the work, willing to grow when it's not glamorous, to show up when it's inconvenient, to lead yourself with integrity when no one else is watching. When you choose to work harder on yourself than anything else, you become the kind of person that success, favor, and divine increase chase after. This is not just about ambition. It's about alignment. It's about becoming the vessel worthy of the vision. Because God doesn't bless the image you pretend to be. He blesses the version of you that is refined, prepared, disciplined, and faithful. And when you become that version, doors open not because of who you know, but because of who you've become.